friends, welcome into the training. Ty Hicks, founder of Financial Freedom University and Mastering Ethical and Lasting Influence. And today I wanted to dive in on what I have found to be the 6 most common mistakes people are making when they're managing their personal finances, or failing to manage their personal finances, I should say, differently. And if you've seen my video that I probably sent to you a few days ago on the most common myths regarding, becoming financially free, some of the mistakes that people make in accordance to those myths are what we're going to uncover here, as well as go a little bit beyond that as well. And the real question I want you to be asking yourself is, how many of these are you committing? And what is it really costing you in the long run? So let's dive in. The first big mistake that I see people making time and time again, and this is directly related to one of the most common myths that people buy into, is they first of all do not establish a belief, a place of certainty in the idea that they themselves can be financially free, or at the very minimum that they can actually meet their own financial goals. I see so many people describing their own financial predicament as one in which it's something that they have no control over. They put it through this lens of external blame and a lack of internal responsibility. And that's never going to be a place that can move things forward for you. That's just the reality of things. There's no individual who's ever been successful in turning something around who did not first believe assuredly that they could, in fact, do it. And so if you do not yet have this place of certainty where you say that, hey, you know what, even though I don't have the answers are out there, and I can go out there and pick them up and find them and compress time by figuring out what someone else has already done. If you can get to that place of curiosity and certainty and get in that perfect mix, all of a sudden something new becomes possible and there becomes a new opening in the mind. So don't commit this fatal mistake of first writing off your entire financial destiny as something that's going to be destitute or only something marginally above destitute. You can do so much more than you actually think you possibly can, especially if you're somebody living in a country like the United States. So don't believe that. In fact, let's look at an example of somebody who would be on sort of the lower economic strata in the United States and show how even somebody in this sort of predicament could become financially free. And this is almost a worst case scenario of an individual that I think should give you a lot of confidence in what your financial future could look like. So let's assume we've got a hypothetical man here. This is a hypothetical individual, but real numbers. And John makes only $20,000 a year, which some people, granted, are making probably even less than this, and that's understood. But let's even assume that not only does John only make $20,000 a year, but that he only makes $20,000 a year for his entire life, and that is very uncommon to find. And if you're at the stage where you're watching this video, if you've got the basic technology in front of you where that's a possibility for you, I very much doubt that you will be making only $20,000 for the rest of your life. And if you believe that that's going to be a situation for you, then we need to talk and keep talking, because that's just simply not a reality that has to be your destiny. That's one you might choose if you cling to that internal story, but it absolutely is not one that has to be possible. So let's assume John, however, only makes $20,000 his entire life. And you would think, okay, this individual can't plan for their financial future. How in the world could they make strategic moves, make investments, or do anything to try to plan, even save? How could they do it? Well, the reality is, if the government applied an extra tax on John, who's making $20,000 a year, and came to him and said, we're taking 10% of your income, he would, whine and kick and cry and scream. But then he would do it, and he'd figure out a way to do it. And so the reality is, if it becomes a must for you to dedicate a sacred portion of your income to your financial future, if it becomes that level of a must, and if you get associated fully with the consequences of your not taking action by doing that, then all of a sudden things can change. And so you've got to get yourself to that spot where you make a real decision and cut off any possibility of going back to your old patterns of not having purposeful and intentional financial rituals that support your future. So let's assume John now invests just 10% of his income every year, and he puts it in the right places and at the right time, which is more of what we cover in our mastery course. And he just puts in $2,000 away a year, and let's assume that he averages 8% average return on investment, or ROI for short. What would end up happening is, if he does this every year, he doesn't make any more money at any point in his life. He doesn't raise his investments at any point, which is uncommon for most individuals. But let's assume the worst case scenario that he doesn't. He would still achieve financial freedom by the age of 57, meaning that he would be able to subsist on his own investments, on the returns that his investments are generating by age 57, and that would now support his actual cost of living. In fact, it would probably be even younger, because at age 57 is when he would be getting $20,000 worth of income off of his investments alone, and that is obviously above what his actual cost of living would be. So he would actually achieve financial freedom younger than that. So why do I show this example to you? I show this example to you so that you can see that even somebody who would be considered in poverty by American standards, or on the lower economic strata, and does not have economic mobility for their entire life, they themselves could still become financially free if they were decisive enough, if they made it a must, and if they found out what those critical insights and distinctions are that are necessary in order to actually magnify wealth. And so that's what I want you to get excited about, because no matter what your economic situation is, I guarantee you can get yourself to this place at a minimum, and I'm sure you can go far beyond that. So that's the first big mistake that people make. Oh, and by the way, by the time he's 65, he'll have almost $570,000 stocked away for his future. So the second biggest mistake that people make, beyond just believing that they cannot achieve their financial goals, is then not setting a clear and compelling financial goal. And the reason why this is so important is the same reason why it's imperative that you set a clear and compelling goal in any area of your life. There's two big reasons why you need something clear and compelling. First of all, if it is not measurable, it will not get managed. And so if you do not have something that is specific, then you will never really know if you're getting closer to it or further away, but rather you will just kind of be floating in this endless sea of existence, not really knowing if you're getting closer to your goal or not, as opposed to you saying, hey, there's the lighthouse on the horizon, and I'm going to purposefully swim towards that direction. And yes, I may be rocked by the waves, I may get off course, I may lose sight of it here and there, but if that's always my guiding star, I know I'm inching closer to it. That is the distinction between having a clear, measurable, and compelling goal and not. Most people just say, oh yeah, I'd like to earn more money. Okay, how much would you like to earn? Why? What would you like to do with it? Who would you like to serve? We'll do a lot more for other people than we typically will do for ourselves. But hardly anybody has ever written anything down and gotten incredibly crystal clear about what they actually want their financial future to be. And so you need to do this. In fact, one of the best ways to do it is to figure out what is the lifestyle or what is the philanthropic goal that you may have, and take that big, juicy, emotional outcome and then work backwards and figure out how much would it actually cost for me to do that. Most people actually have a dollar amount in their mind that would be necessary to meet their financial goals that is higher than it would actually take. To put that in more simpler terms, the lifestyle that people desire is typically cheaper than what most people actually imagine it to be in their mind. So when you create something that's measurable, it gets clear, it gets compelling, it juices you up, it'll make you stay up late and get up early, and it will make sure that you know whether you're getting closer or not. That's what's so incredibly powerful about this process. So get very clear about what outcomes you're committed to in your financial life, and that's going to be getting you on the first step of building momentum towards achieving your goals. The third big mistake that I see people make time and time again is not having a handle on their basic cost of living expenses. How much does it cost for you to meet your basic financial obligations each month? Do you know the number? If you don't, this is not a good thing, my friend. There's two big reasons why you need to know this. First of all, if you don't know how much it's currently costing for you to sustain your own lifestyle at your core expense level, you'll never know how much free capital you have to actually invest and put in a place that could get you closer to your financial future you desire. That's number one. The second big reason why it's important for you to have a handle on this is that most people are spending more month to month than they absolutely need to. And if you take a good hard look at your cost of living, you can start realizing that it may be time to make some new decisions. It may be time for you, for instance, to say, is there a cheaper place I could live? Are there cheaper decisions I could make? Is there a different, living situation I could have that could cut down costs for me? This is the first layer that I take my high-paying, one-on-one clients through when I'm helping them map out their financial freedom, is to firstly get a complete handle on your current core expenses. So you want to detail all of that out. Number 4 mistake I see people make is not analyzing your financial rituals. Okay, so beyond your rent, utilities, insurance, all of those core basic must-have costs, even though they could be altered or reduced, beyond that, what are your additional financial rituals? How much money are you blowing at the bars each week? Are you spending a fortune eating out, for lunch during the week, or going out to expensive dinners? How much money are you spending on entertainment? Do you have any guilty pleasures? Do you have any subscription payments that you are paying for right now that you don't even take advantage of the service anymore? Many people still do this. What could you be doing with that money instead, right? Having a full handle on your financial rituals is something most people do not have. They've not gotten intentional about a weekly budget. They've not dedicated certain amounts of funds to certain areas, and they almost certainly have not dedicated a sacred percentage of funds to invest in the right areas to support their financial future. So what you want to do is have a full financial audit of all of your rituals. That's imperative. The 5th biggest mistake, probably one of the most costly ones I see people make all the time, is just not getting started. They do not start planning for their financial future nearly early enough. And I got to tell you, every day that you wait is costing your future self precious time and resources that you will never get back. The single dollars that you are failing to stock away to plan for your financial future end up becoming tens, 20s, hundreds for your future self. That's the reality. In fact, let me show you an example that should make it crystal clear to you as to why you cannot put off planning your financial future any longer. Let's take an example. This is a hypothetical person, but a real example in terms of the numbers. So let's take Tom, for example. He's age 25. And let's say he earns $40,000 a year, and let's say that he invests the maximum he can in his Roth IRA each year, $5,500. And he does this from age 25 to 40. Okay, so for 15 years, he invests $5,500 a year. All right, that's Tom's story. And he gets started at age 25. Now, Harry, his other friend, he puts off saving. He puts off investing. He puts off figuring out what it would actually take to achieve financial mastery. And so he does so by 15 years. And so he doesn't start investing until age 40. And now he starts investing $5,500 a year, but he does it from age 40 to age 65. So as opposed to Tom, who only invested for 15 years, Harry actually invests almost twice that. He invests for 25 years. So who would you think would have more money? Well, you might be tempted to think that Harry would be the one that would have more money, considering he put a whole hell of a lot more money in and invested for many, many more years. But in fact, it's just the opposite. And it's not the opposite by a slim margin. It is the opposite by a huge margin. Tom, who got started at age 25, who got started 10 years earlier, ends up with a nest egg of almost $1.5 million. He becomes a millionaire. But Harry, who invests $5,500 a year for 25 years, only has $420,000 to his name. Over $1 million more is in Tom's pocket because he started investing 10 years prior. This is the power of compounding interest. And this is actually assuming a pretty conservative rate of return, on your investments. So these numbers are real, my friend. This is what it is costing you. The hundreds that you are forgetting to save and invest today become thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars for your future self. You cannot afford to you cannot afford to stop putting this off. Let me try that one more time. You cannot afford to not do this anymore, okay? It is costing you way too much. It's costing your future self way too much. And you may have questions, and I know you do, and that's why we've put a lot of resources together to make sure you get the answers you need so you can get out of obscurity and get into taking action. But here's the thing you need to understand. You might be thinking to yourself right now, okay, Ty, this is all well and good, but I can't, I've got no money. I can't invest anything. I can't save anymore. And I would say, bullshit. You can. The savings are in there somewhere. I just gave you an example of somebody who was making $20,000 a year, yet if it was an absolute must for them to save 10% and dedicate that as a sacred allocation for their financial future, it could be done. If the government came and said, we're taking another 10% of your income and cut it right off at the top before you even got it in your bank account, you would find a way to subsist. You would find a way to live. So you've got to get to a place where it's an absolute must, and if this example doesn't scare you straight, I don't know what will. But I guarantee you this, if you don't start taking action now, fast forward a couple decades, and your future self is going to be kicking themselves in the teeth. They're going to be wishing that you got started today. 20 years from now, you will be thankful that you got started. And if you want to know those answers, there should be a link on this page as well if you want to find out more about our Financial Mastery and Financial Freedom University course. That's something that walks you through all the answers you need to know. Sixth most common mistake I see people make all the time is not maximizing tax efficiency. They are actually giving more money to Uncle Sam than they actually have to. Now, regardless of what your specific views are on taxation, what I can tell you is, even if you think it's a civic duty, you're not obligated to give more than what's required. And so why in the world would you leave more money on the table that could be supporting your family, your friends, your financial goals, or your financial future when you don't have to? And so you've got to understand the amount of deductions that you could take and what makes sense for you. Most people don't understand that there are at least 9 standard deductions that you may actually qualify for if you're diligent enough when it comes time to file your taxes. So you might do your research on that. So in my next video, what I'm going to be sharing with you is the 7 steps to achieve financial freedom. I'm going to give you an introduction to those concepts and show you how you stop committing these fatal errors, but actually start implementing the absolute tactics that you need to be taking action on in order to move your life forward and close the gap between where you are and where you want to be financially. So I'm so excited. Keep an eye on your inbox. You'll be seeing that training coming to you in a few days. Until then, get intentional, get clear on where you want to go, and start taking action today.